Welcome to the Every Day is a New Day podcast and live show, the inspirational show about moving forward and choosing to be more of you, transmuting the self-doubt and stepping into courageously aligned confidence in who you uniquely are. My name is Kim O'Neill. I'm a twice certified transformational confidence coach, Reiki master, best-selling author, and former crime analyst who now helps empathic, heart-centered individuals shatter the noise of self-doubt, find clarity on what self-love really looks like, and the courage to be peacefully grounded in who you've always known you are, from the inside out. Join me for the live shows on Facebook and YouTube, and visit KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. Let's get to it. I just want to remind you to, at this time, while we are experiencing so many things happening around us, to make sure that you are honoring your personal experience of it. So there's no right or wrong here, no judgment, no shame about however you are currently experiencing what's happening around you. One of the best things you can do for yourself is really allow yourself to feel things as they come up for you versus resist them and try to push them away. To get in that state of flow, one of the best things we can do is feel that and then release what we don't want to feel and mindfully bring in what we do and just allow yourself to be in process. We're all in process. And so that brings me to today's guest, which I'm really excited because I know she has a lot she can share with us today, but one of the things that really just hit home when, I was learning more about her myself is this whole concept about, what comes next after personal development. So before we go any further, let me just go ahead and welcome Rhonda Smith. Welcome, Rhonda.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim.
Absolutely. So, okay, how I typically do this, I go ahead and just share a little bit about your bio with those who are joining us on the live show here. And so let me go ahead and bring up your bio, get them a little bit familiar with who you are. So Rhonda Smith is the CEO and founder of Cosmicsmith and the Expanded Hueman, where she leads sold-out plant medicine retreats and coaches high net worth A players. With her unique approach and radical style paired with sacred plant medicine, she blows the lids off of executives, CEOs, leaders, and trailblazers who have become emotionally bankrupt and struggling in their personal lives and relationships. Her mission is to help people tap into the limitless question of what comes next after personal development. She seeks to answer what kind of world could we create and what kind of people can we become? And I love that we're gonna get to dive into some of that today.
We are. It's such an exciting topic. I mean, we're all such in a place of having to be in growth and having to be doing and we needing to be more. And, we really have this idea around what's enough, like what's our enough number, what's enough in our lives. And I think there's no greater time right now than right now in this time to actually really figure out what it is that we need. And I know in my own life, like I haven't really wanted to connect with a lot of people. I probably have 80 text messages in my phone I haven't replied to. And it's like really getting in alignment with what we're really here to do and how we want to spend our time and what is no longer working.
Thank you so much for being so authentic and just sharing that, because that's just it. We're all having our own experience. I know some people I've noticed are feeling more left out or maybe even abandoned to some degree by people in their lives. And I think it's so key to remember that not only are we having our experience, but everyone we know is having their experience too. So if we can do our best to maybe not place judgment on how someone else is responding and the beliefs we might start to make about it for ourselves, right? I know there are some messages that I've had to say, I can't, I have to put the pause on that too right now and honor me. So I just want to add that point.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because we have this it's almost like we're a forklift and we have to hold all these things and people to make us feel valued or enough or have worth. And when we can let go of that and allow someone else to be in the experience, that's where the teaching and the learning really is for everyone's growth. And sometimes, maybe I hold too much space for people, or sometimes, they call me Mama Rhonda in ceremony a lot because I have a tendency to overgive and overcare. And I built a coaching business based on my wounding of if I create relationships like this with people, then I'm going to be needed and people are going to want me. And then I got to a point a few years ago when I was like, wow, I don't want this anymore. So I had to completely switch everything I did and really get my people to be more self-reliant and self-responsible. And that was a big shift for me, to let go and allow them to be in the process of frustration, and just allow it, and just to sit with them, right? Like holding true space.
Oh my gosh, Rhonda, I love that. I so resonate with everything you just said.
Right? You're a coach, you know.
Yes.
I was like, crap, I created a business based on my wounding, and now like I get to figure it out. So then it was like, now how do I want to show up for myself and for other people? And there's no greater thing that we can teach, or work with or show or demonstrate for other people than how to take care of ourselves. And I always say there's no greater thing you can teach a child than how to self-soothe, or how to like take care of themselves, right? And like those are such important things. And everyone's a helicopter in this time, because it's like, and everyone has an answer for everybody. And if someone's uncomfortable with something, someone needs to like switch them out of it. And it's like, that's not where we're at in humanity anymore.
Yeah, it's not. How comfortable are you with sharing more about your wounding that led to what you do today?
No, absolutely. Yeah? So I was born with extreme codependency. So, a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of work, had a lot of trauma in the womb. So when I came out, like I was so self-reliant on my parents, and like couldn't really do a lot of stuff for myself. And they just didn't know how to help me. You know, I mean, it was based on their education and where they were at. So they just kind of did it for me, or helped me. And then when I was in my late 20s, my mom died, and it was this huge wake up, and my life hugely crashed and burned in this really addictive, horrific way. I tried to kill myself 2 times, and all these things that's so beautiful and so perfectly aligned to show me what I needed to see. But really at this place, it's like, you gotta be able to do this yourself. You gotta be able to find yourself. So, you know, this last weekend I had codependent need come up with my partner, and I was just like, I'm very much in this. I'm projecting these things on you, and like, let's talk about it, because we can be in a more conscious place with it. I don't know if it goes away. I just think that we're able to handle it differently.
Okay. Oh my gosh. If you are with us, I love everything you're saying, Rhonda. If you are with us live, let us know if this is resonating with you, or if you have questions about anything that Rhonda is saying. Now is a beautiful time to post those in the chat so we can respond to them as we are live. So one of the things I love about what you just said is how you were talking about in your late 20s when your mom died and you crashed and burned. And then what I also heard you say is basically you had this awareness, though, that you had to move through it and find your way beyond that space of feeling suicidal and things like that. Will you share with us, what was that like? And like, how do you think you were able to be in the space of feeling so, just in the space that you were in, and yet also have the awareness that you've got to find your way beyond that time?
Most of us don't listen to the whispers that come into life. We don't. And like, for me, it had to get so loud and so bold. Like, I basically had to be eaten by the alligator, like whole.
Okay.
And so like, it wasn't like, I just caught on and I had this like awareness come. I mean, there was like slight awarenesses that were happening, but I literally had to like crash and burn in the worst way that I possibly could for me to finally hear. And now when things start to come up, I can listen to the whispers a little bit more, because I'm able to be in my body. I understand embodiment. I can feel my feelings. I can allow anxiety. I mean, I've had such brutal anxiety, which is so interesting as an entrepreneur, because waking up with 2 businesses, a medicine school, and all the things we're doing right now. And like, my biggest fear is that I didn't know how to show up consistently in my life. Like, I could not consistently do it. So when we started Expanded Hueman, we got the partners together and we had this big conversation. And I said, I want to know who you really are on your worst days. And I told them who I was on my worst days. And I think they had a little idea, but I just wrote a book called The Whole Method last year. I totally recommend it. It's definitely the book of this time.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. It's like the Celestine prophecies for this time. And it talks about our shadow and how we have to go our own way. And I had, I would say, a huge breakdown about a month before the book came out, and went to bed for 3 weeks. And
wow.
I called my partners on the phone one night, and I'm like, that time I said it was going to come, I'm like, it's here. And they had no idea. And then they supported me. They stepped in, they did the things. But I think like, the thing that really gets us into our potential of like being able to give and to share our knowledge and to go do big things in the world is radical acceptance of who we really are. And if I were to fake it and put on a mask, and really just pretend, like, you're going to see that part, right? So it's like, This is who I am. Do you still want to do this with me? And that really allowed me to like have acceptance with I believe that depression has been built into my life to slow me down. Yeah,
Wow.
and I had this awareness during that time, and it was like, uh, I needed to lay in the fetal position. And a great friend who's a naturopath said, the body needs to lay in the fetal position until it no longer needs to lay in the fetal position. She's like, lay down. So I listened, and it was like, I grow into my higher self when I'm in depression. And like literally, I need to lay in bed and I need to let all this information come in. And like when I could finally just start being like, okay, this is who I am, and I need to allow this to happen and not need to get up or feel, like I'm not growing, I'm not doing, I'm not expanding to my highest potential. This is part of it. Everything kind of changed for me. And yeah, I still battle with, like really good self-care. And we were talking before the call started, and I've been preparing for like this time for a really long time. And plant medicine has shown us a lot of like what's coming. And I really thought I was going to be more prepared. And the biggest part is that my body isn't prepared to hold like what my soul body knows and handles. So, I've fallen back into some shadow patterns, which I don't have no problem talking about. And I'm definitely getting up later in the mornings, and we've adjusted our meetings and our schedules to allow ourselves this time to really embrace the truth of what's happening rather than pretending that everything's okay and everything's at home. And so, it's interesting.
So eh, when I typically think of rebirth, I tend to think of, those moments when everything is crashing and burning and you're cocooning, and eventually you reemerge feeling more empowered and have more clarity and all of that. But I also just got a completely new visual of what it could look like as you were describing lying in bed, being in the fetal position because you know that your soul is growing. I think that's how you worded it.
Yeah.
And oh, I love that. That even sounds, I think that tends to be a natural thing people would do anyway as they're in that process. But to be able to have that perspective when you're feeling the need to just go lay down and be in the fetal position and know that your soul is growing. I love that reframe. If you're with us live, please let us know, what are your thoughts about that? That's beautiful. I feel like so many of us right now are in a space of being rebirthed and becoming the phoenix rising. And it's not a pretty process. That's the thing. It sounds awesome when you get to that space, but leading up to it, it's kind of messy. It's kind of ugly. It can be painful. It's not fun necessarily. And I don't think it's even a consistent process. I know myself just the last month, and yeah, this is what we were sharing at the beginning, is I was definitely having my moments of being up and down and wanting to do other things, but having to completely say, nope, my body wouldn't let me. And it was like, okay, we're not going to rush. We're not going to force. We're going to honor what is. That was my practice time, getting more practice time on honoring myself. So so I'm loving this conversation because it's absolutely relevant to right now. So Rhonda, what came next for you after you was there a phoenix rising moment for you?
So the phoenix rising for me happens often. I have a teacher,
Okay.
and he's so great. He was like, die often, die comfortably. So, so it's like, okay, I'm going to go through it again. Oh, here's another wave of this again. And it's like every time I take on a new project or we decide to do something, I have this like shiny object syndrome. I'm this super visionary. And then thank God I have an amazing team of people that can anchor in my ideas and actually create them. Otherwise I would just be like floating out in the cosmos, I think sometimes. So, yes, it happens every time I do a project. And, I've gone through some really hard things in my life, some really, really hard things in my life. And writing my book, I would say, was one of the most challenging because it's like the ultimate shadow of who we are and bringing it forward. So, yeah, I think that, now that I'm more kind to myself in the process of like, you just took on a really big thing and now you're going to have this dip. So how can you make it as comfortable as you can for yourself? But, and not all people are like that, but Highly Sensitive People, which is actually a great book if you haven't read it, really lets you know like 30 or so % of the population is super sensitive to things. Animals are this way. It's in like all kinds of things. They notice when food changes or the weather changes early, or if, something different. And we notice it too. And like I have a new partner, I'm in a new relationship, and he doesn't really understand what it even means to be sensitive. He's like, he can handle. So it's been such an interesting dynamic of like trying to make space for me to have sensitivity and to be myself and still show up in all these ways. So yeah, I think that the message right now is like, If you need to eat food, like I had one day and I was starving, like I could not get it. And I'm like, my body is it's trying to get something like that it's not getting. We need to listen. And, I don't know about you guys, but like I'm enjoying sleeping in a little bit in the morning and getting more rest and being a little bit more lazy and those pieces. I'm still doing, yard work and all the fun things and still trying to run 2 companies.
No.
I wouldn't say that we're like killing it, but we're certainly showing up. And I'm in a coaching program and my coach is like all about just killing it. And I'm like, and I love having that idea and that process, but I'm also listening to the fact that I know me and something big is coming for humanity and we need to be a little more rested and a little more aligned and a little more fed and a little more something right now. So
I totally hear you. For me, it's going to bed earlier and getting more sleep that way. Yeah, absolutely. So, Rhonda, I want to dive into this question that you've posed around the idea of, when is personal development enough, and what comes next beyond it? Will you kind of tell
yeah.
us what led up to that?
Well, a couple of years ago, I had this time where I had done so much plant medicine. I had traveled around. I had gone to Peru. I had trained in it. I'd become a medicine practitioner. I was working as a coach. I work in shadow. Like the education that I've brought in for myself has been great. And I wasn't fulfilled, and I was super miserable. I was super fucking miserable. And I was like, this isn't it. So I got really angry, which is like the ring of fire, like all this anger. And everyone's like, anger is a negative emotion. I don't believe in negative and positive emotions. I think they're all there for us. And every experience is information that we'll bring in for us. Yeah. So I went through an entire summer of anger. And I was probably, my dad's like, you're really hard to be around right now. So, but I had a lot of relationships that weren't aligned. I was betraying myself in a lot of ways. And in that moment, I signed up with a huge publisher to write a book. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this or what's going to happen, but like just really letting the anger come in. And like, obviously anger that causes, trauma to somebody or something isn't healthy. But when we experience that inside, it's like this drive to say, hey, like pay attention to me. So we really started questioning stuff. And I'd had through, 5 years of plant medicine, had been shown this vision of what I was supposed to create. And I thought it was the vision of my life. And all of these things are happening right now. So we decided, I had 2 people come in that were like the perfect partners. And we decided to create the Expanded Hueman, Hueman, which is all the hues of the human, embracing all of the hues of the human. And it really is this idea of answering the question, what comes next after personal development? Because I'm so tired of if you're not growing, you're dying. I'm so tired of this whole piece because I'm watching men, I could primarily coach men who have like massive empty success syndrome, and they've created these things. They're not celebrating the goal. So then like I have men come to me and they're like, maybe I need to be in an open relationship. And they're like constantly looking outside of themselves. And it's really something that can only be felt inside of yourself. And I'm like, you need to work with me for 6 months before you're the person that can make that decision for yourself. If you want to do this in your marriage or do this in something. So our woman that's in our group is a little bit different than our man. I'm finding women are not finding maybe conscious relationships, and we've kind of been stamped with this expectation of what it's supposed to look like and how great it's supposed to be. And that's just really not the reality of the situation. It's like learning how to be in partnership. Like partnership's the ultimate of like looking at our own shadow. So we've been working for 18 months solid, like with like the best people we can find in the business. We have videos coming out. We have all this stuff getting ready to come out to talk about like, okay, so we all have this knowledge. We think we need more. I believe we're already born with all of it. It's just really remembering it, right? Like it's remembering our way back in. Yep. So if you look at like Maslow's triangle of hierarchy, we're all in the esteem section. We're all in the esteem section, right? And like, we're looking for things, like we're searching, we want to be seen. And like, it's dead. We're bored. We're saturated. It is saturated. And like, self-actualization is super interesting. But like, what does that mean? Well, then we got to dive deep into the shadow, as above, so below. So we're really getting ready to launch the Inner Circle, which is a mastermind for people who are like just super driven to make big shift. I mean, it's time to stop taking out the recycling. We have to do this on a system scale to make change. So we're looking for those kind of people that want impact, like And I have a really hard time with that word, because like they want to go out and I'm going to impact you. I don't want
Yeah.
you to impact me, you know? So, but it's like to create shift and to live this way and to be observed living this way. So, that's really what we do, is we help you dive into that inside part of ourselves where we can actually understand and how to integrate all this information. And for some of it, deprogram and unlearn a lot of stuff that we've been learning the last few years, because I wouldn't say all of it's super healthy. So it's just learning. It's remembering.
Do you think there's ever a point where someone gets to the point of being done with personal development? Yes,
Absolutely.
you do?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
totally.
Okay. This is what I want to hear. I want to tell me more about that, because that hasn't been my perspective, but I'm open and I want to hear, because I know you have
Yeah,
so
I
much.
mean, I think that it's obviously every person is different, every lens is different, and our needs are different. I'm still not like I'm in a program right now to help learn how to put myself out there differently in business, right? Like, so that is still there, but like that deep need in me to that, like to feed myself so much deeply, like that's not there. So it's like, how can I do this in a way? But it's utilizing our tools. But if we can't sit and listen to the wisdom that's already in us, and we can't sit with ourselves, and we have to be listening to 5,000 podcasts or reading, it's like funny, people, I have all these friends that read like 50 books a year, and I'm like, how can you possibly integrate 50 books a year, a
Wow.
book a week, or even a book a month? And I was
Yeah.
like, pick 2 books and read those for the whole year. Hopefully it's my book, you'll read that book. But it's integrate it, learn it, embody it, live it, like slow down. It's not a race to like more. It's really about like, how do I want to exist? And as I've been waking up into, I want to say, the nightmare of where we're living on earth right now, I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear about what maybe I wasn't going to be able to have anymore, or all of these things. And my teacher's just like, be kind, be compassionate, grow a garden. And that's all he's said to me for all the years we've worked together. And right now I'm trying to be as kind as I can, as compassionate as I can, and I'm working on growing a garden. So it's like, what else are you going to do? So what happens when we finally can just stop and quiet ourselves and not need to just constantly feed ourselves is magic happens, like absolute magic of the soul and the wisdom. And this is a little woo woo, but we're connecting into
It's all
5D.
good. I love it.
Yeah, we've been living in 3D, third dimension. Fourth dimension's growth. 5D is this other way, and I think we're all experiencing it differently. But for me, it started a couple of years ago, and I found myself, like, I was in the shower, and I had this like this. I was like, wow, like I just served medicine to these people, and I remember dreaming about it as a kid. Wow, I like dreamt it,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
yeah, it happens all the time right now. Like, it's insane. I almost want to shut it off. It's happening so much, but it's like moments just like, snuggling or cooking dinner or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, I've dreamt this. I remember dreaming this. So it's like, do we already dream it all? Like, is this the dream? Like, these questions are so weird. But when we can quiet the mind and connect into ourselves and not need to always be feeding because we have enough, and really, what is enough, right? Um, our access is insane.
I totally hear what you're saying, and I want to frame it in a different way, because this is how I perceive that, and I love your perspective on it though, because it helps me shift things too. The way I see it is, the more that we love ourselves, like that's getting to that place of knowing we're enough as we are, and therefore don't need to keep finding something to fill us up, but rather fill ourselves up with who we are, and being that and understanding that and accepting that, what you started with at the beginning here. So I love that. I think that is I would actually say I agree with you. I completely agree. There is an end point, or enough is enough.
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean that we're not going to still, take in new information or remember new information. But it's, and as a woman, like, I've had this expectation of what my body needs to look like to be loved, and to put all of these things on myself. And I'm actually in a relationship for the first time where it's like my person loves me as me, right? And like,
Oh,
that's a whole, I know, but that's a whole new thing. That's a whole shadow side of myself that I have to allow to happen, because I don't need to always be explaining that I should be doing this or I shouldn't be doing this, or all of these things. So it's like, that radical self-acceptance, that radical self-love is such a hard one to swallow. And sometimes it means that you have to give up the very thing that is the most important that you want. Right?
like
Well, so like you choose. So ultimately, I feel like this time is about choosing ourselves over everything, no matter what.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And sometimes you're like, how can I have to leave this situation, this job, this experience, this desire? And I think that desire thing is so implanted in this. Like we can have all the things we desire, all the materialistic wealth, all the things. Like I don't need 3 cars and multiple. Like I don't need that. What do I need? And it's like spirit makes sure that that happens. Like my needs are met, but this absorbent need where it's not enough and I'm complacent and I'm looking for something else. Like then we got to look at that. We got to sit with those feelings.
What would you say is the difference between self-acceptance and radical self-acceptance?
I mean, that's, like whatever, like, for example, the part of your body that's like the part you hide, right? Like,
Okay.
showing it, like literally just being like, okay, I'm going to actually do this. I'm radically going to accept who I am. And, I'm known for being very blunt. And my partners, like, it's very interesting to learn how to navigate that time because I'm going to say what I feel and I'm going to try and say it in a way that's kind. I'm not going to be like a big dick about it. But at the same time, there's a point where it's like, we got to say those things. And in my book, I talk about it. I call it the flick. And we all need a little flick. And it's this thing we say to each other in a loving way.
Like this kind of a flick?
Like,
okay.
Totally. It's like, just like that. And it's like, oh, that stung. But it's that thing. It's like, I love you, but I'm not going to hold this space for you anymore because you're not going to change it. And like, I accept that you're going to stay that way, but I don't have to hold this space for you. And that makes people feel this flick of discomfort and embarrassment. And I've been flicked many times and greatest things that have ever happened to me. So it's like, what am I no longer available for? And it's like, I can't force somebody to do something, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to do this with you anymore.
Right. Well, and in that flick moment though, you're honoring yourself, which can never truly be wrong.
Right.
And so it's, I'm sure it's not your intention to be like stinging somebody else, but I've noticed that when it's kind of a push comes to shove moment, it's like how much of yourself do you continue to give away because you're trying to be respectful of someone else, and really all along you're harming yourself by dishonoring who you are and what you need.
Completely. And, I coach people who are typically having one of the most existentially difficult times of their lives happen. So that's when people call me, is when like, everything is really, really, really challenging and I have no idea how to do it. And that requires a really deep boundary in me and a fierceness at times where it's like, I understand that you don't want to do this, but you need to hear this. Like, this is where we're at. Like, we have to sit in the darkest of the shadow right now. And like, you have to like come to terms with something. So that part, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting work at times to work with people on that level.
Well, let me interject. I imagine that you getting to the place knowing that there's going to be times when you have to do that with the people you work with. Was there first a time when someone did that to you? And you were, okay. And so, oh, I totally get it. So then being the person who experiences that and having to navigate, oh crap, now I have to be the person who does that to someone else.
Ooh. It's like, I didn't sign. I was like, how the hell did I get this job? Because I don't remember ever signing up for this.
I do.
When I first started working with plant medicine, I just graduated a really severe coaching program, and I started working with severe plant medicine, and all my suicidal tendencies were coming out. And I called my medicine woman and I was like, I'm super suicidal. And she's like, and again, if you are suicidal, you need to call for help. We do, please get the help you need. Don't think that you have to do this alone. My experience is very different. I had tons of support in this, which we want to make sure that everybody has that.
Yes.
And she said, awesome, go sit in it and don't call me for 2 days. And it was the biggest flick of my life because my family fed into my need. Everyone just tried to like do it. And I had to sit there for the first time in my life. And it was like, it wasn't even a flick. It was like I got hit with a truck.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was like, now sit in it. And there's no greater thing that she's one of my very best friends in the whole world, but there's no greater thing that anyone's ever done for me, because it was like, girl, get a hold of yourself. And like, you need to feel this. We can't do it for you. And these pieces. So it's really interesting. And, I wouldn't say go out and just, everyone's like, I'm in my truth, so I'm just going to share exactly what I feel. I don't promote that either. Like, learning how you share this really shows your level of work. And I would say true success is really demonstrated by how we treat ourselves and others when we're in times of conflict or pain or embarrassment, or like that shows me who you are and where you are in your work. If you're like rude to me, which happens,
Right.
I'm going to see that like you don't know how to live yourself that way, so you're going to treat me that way. So it's fascinating, but it's the work of our time, because we've all been flying around on these clouds, like just kind of getting away with our codependent needs or our narcissistic tendencies. And I do want to say, we have demonized the narcissist long enough. Like, if we don't take time to actually sit down and figure this out, it's never going to heal. And it's what's happening in our time. It's time to have a different conversation around that.
I love that you said that. And I won't say that that's even an easy thing to say because I have seen that too, and feel like I've been on I think it's such an unpleasant journey to be in when you've experienced the unpleasantness of a narcissist, and then coming back to the realization that, hello, we're all people, and all dealing with our own situations that lead into who we are and how we behave and how we interact and all of that, right? And so coming to that space of peace and forgiveness, and maybe even a level of acceptance and love, if you can get there for, so
well, I'm a recovering codependent. So like, if there was like a hot narcissist, like I was all about that. Like that was the pattern of my life, to the point of trying to kill myself because of being gaslighted so severely and all these things. And I can blame that situation, or I can take ownership of that situation, is that I didn't have the strength in me to be able to handle my own need. And like the need was so deep in me. And I'm probably the only one that ever says this. I'm so grateful for that pattern in my life, because the healing that's come and who I've got to become, and being, everyone's like, oh, you're an empath, you're going to feel everything. No, the goal of being an empath is to not feel everything. It's to feel the sensations, but to be boundaried, to be strong in ourselves, right?
Yes.
So yeah, these patterns are all designed. It's all designed for our evolution, for expansion.
Yep. There was something else you said a moment ago that I wanted to touch on. And then the narcissistic thing came in, and it was like, oh,
sorry.
we gotta, no, it's okay. It all happens as it's supposed to. That was beautiful, actually. It's, oh goodness. Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but let's talk a little bit more about, well, let me just ask you, is there something else coming up for you right now? Did I cut you off kind of earlier?
You didn't cut me off at all. No.
Okay.
No, I very much believe in the flow of conversation.
Yeah.
So whatever is circling is what's meant to come through, right?
Well, let's.
Okay. So like, let's talk
go ahead.
that. So like, we have all been given this idea of this dream, and this is exactly what my book's about. Is that if we go up this mountain, we'll find success, and we're going to find all the things we've ever been told we've ever wanted. And what I'm finding from all the people that have had great success is like that wasn't the thing. So it's like stepping off the path and finally like looking way, way off in the distance and seeing the mountain that's meant for just you. And I'm really tired of everybody having this store-bought idea of what like a relationship is supposed to look like, what our businesses are supposed to look like. And if I have to hear one more woman say, or man, but typically it's women, that if like I have to create from this inspired place, I didn't create anything in my businesses from an inspired place. Like that's just not how it worked for me. Like there's time it gets to happen, but like, no, I had to like sit in it and create even when I didn't want to. There's a woman that works with me who is like, I seriously could not live life without her. And we both felt so horrible, and we were creating medicine school. I just launched a medicine school to teach people medicine. And we both felt so crappy that day. We're laying on the couch, like we're both laying on our couches. And she's like, I have to take a screenshot of this right now because this is what it actually looks like to create a business. And I was just like, oh, so, it doesn't always feel good, and it's not going to be this amazing thing. And you're not always going to have great hair. And, sometimes it's, you haven't showered in 2 days and like, you're still getting work done. So, but that's what the book is about, is really facing the shadow. And
is that the whole method?
The whole method, yeah.
Okay.
Which is available on Amazon. We're going to be doing a little book club next week, just online on Facebook, to do a little reading and talk about it. But it's definitely the book of our time. Yeah, it's like it's time for us to stop buying into the dream that's been created, and to blaze our own trail, and to really figure out what that actually means for us. Because what makes your life happy and what makes your home, and all the things are probably not the same thing that make the same for me. And
okay. Now I'm going to ask a question that speaks to like both sides of what you just said, because I am very much, and I just like literally just said this to someone else the other day. I'm very much a person who I prefer to create best when I'm inspired. Like that to me, that's when I've got it all, and it can be easy and it can be fun and playful and all of that. And if I'm having to force it, then it's like, oh my goodness, like I just, no. So how do you resolve a person doing things in their own way if it's not from an inspired place?
Well, so here's an example. I was in a coaching program with 256 women, amazing women from all over the world, and 22 of us graduated.
Wow.
22 of us graduated, and most of it was because they could not sit in the discomfort of whatever it is that they needed to face to do. And right.
Thank you. Yeah. That was awesome. There it is.
So I get it. I mean, I remember when I had to learn landing pages and lead pages, I literally laid on the floor and cried. And I was like, I can't do this. Like there's no way. And I had a coach at the time. He's like, you have to learn how to do each one of these things yourself, because if you're traveling and your virtual assistant can't help you, you got to be able to tweak your page. And it was hard and it was miserable, but it was facing all those things about myself. And, rather than thinking of it as like creating from an uninspired place, is like, what activity, what pattern, what belief in you is keeping you from being able to do it from an inspired place? For me, it was that I could literally sit at my desk for 8 hours and I would get nothing done. And it was like, oh, now I have to create this. I'm going to write. Right? Like I'm going to write now. Oh, I'm going to go make tea first. I'm going to take my dog out. Maybe if I eat something that will change. And then I realized that like 1 o'clock, like my brain stopped being creative. And like, so it's like learning the time. So learning our times of day where we are creative. I'm creative from 6 a.m. until noon. I know that now. So you're not touching my calendar in that time frame ever, because that's when I get to be in creation. For the rest of the time, that's when I coach. That's when I do other things. That's when I'm in a place of like being able to listen, and it's different. So we have to know ourselves, but I'm going to be honest, there's always something that we have to face about ourselves. And for me, I did timer training. I just had to start for 5 minutes.
Say it again.
Timer chain.
Oh,
yeah,
timer
you can grab
train.
like an egg timer. You can use your phone, but start for 5 minutes. Say I'll do it for 20 minutes. And you wouldn't believe the things you get done, but it's that procrastination. We stand outside the door. Our potential's here. The door's waiting to open of whatever we're ready to create. And we stand outside pacing, wearing a hole in the floor, walking back and forth, being like, but what if it's uncomfortable? What if nobody buys my thing? What if nobody likes it? What if it doesn't make sense? And like most people spend their time right there. And it's like, you have to be able to feel whatever it is you need to be able to feel to walk through that door.
I love that you were tying that into this aspect of entrepreneurship and being a creator and all of that. Yes, that is so true. Again, if you were with us live or on the replay, let us know if this resonates with you as well. It's so interesting how these pockets of energy, we can have such great flow in some aspects of our life. And then there are these little pockets where it's like we bump up against a wall. And it can be easy to have what seems like a justified excuse of why it's not going a certain way. I love that. That was really good. You just busted through that for me. That was wonderful.
Well, it's all figure outable, and it's in design for you to grow. It's in design for you to expand, for you to like step into a different level of potential. I mean, 3 years ago, I wasn't doing anything in my business. And now like I can literally sit down and write whatever I need to do. Like there's no resistance anymore. But in me was a deep resistance to get started. It was that fear of judgment. And when I started to write my book, I signed up with a publisher because I knew it was the only way I was going to finish. Huge commitment, enormous financial commitment. And like I had some severe deadlines, and I had like massive block. Like as soon as I signed up, I had like massive block with it. And I talked to my brother, and he said, it really isn't about what people are going to think about the book. And that was where my block was, is because I was saying things in this book that people weren't saying. And I was kind of going against like being positive all the time. And there's a lot, like we have all these feelings and emotions. He said, isn't it really about the person you're going to become by writing the book? And that was enough for me to like I had to completely let go of the outcome. I had to be prepared for people not to like it. I had to go through all the emotional states to be able to do it. And it was like this. So purpose is why we think we're here. Dharma is why we're actually here. So it's like when we have something, spirit, like I'm bringing this through, and if you don't do it, I'm going to give it to someone else. then it's like, crap, this has to come through me. And like, gosh, what are people going to think? And it isn't about that. And you'd be surprised that people don't care quite as much as you think they will.
Will you go ahead and just explain what Dharma is for anybody who's, it's a new term.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think purpose is like what lights our fire. It's what ignites our asses to move into like thinking like, gosh, I think I want to serve, or I want to do something bigger with my life. It's the igniter. But in the end, what comes out, like, I really thought like being a coach was like my thing, and like that was my purpose. And for me, I was very materialistic and all about making money and stuff. It wasn't about serving. So when that shift happened in my life, 10 years ago ish, it was new for me. So I was like, okay, this is why I'm here. And then that I started working with people, and there was a lot of amazing transformation and a lot of amazing sitting in the shadow. But then I was shown that I sit in plant medicine. I sit in sacred ayahuasca ceremonies. I sit in all kinds of ceremonies. And the medicine showed me why I was actually here. And it was terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. And it was like, holy shit, this is like, I had no idea that I had that kind of potential in me. I would have never, it was way beyond anything I could have dreamt for myself. And that particular ceremony, I had like all these questions for her about like why my life wasn't working and all these things. And the medicine said, I'll answer your questions, but I'm going to tell you they're silly. They're completely silly. Like, so in 5 minutes, she answered all the questions I needed answered. And then she's like, now for the next 5 hours, I'm going to show you what I want you to see. And it was so large and so much. And it was like, I woke up in massive fear because I was like, I was so far away from that person of who I needed to be. So Dharma is why we're here. Dharma is our unique soul, lens, experiences, all of the life, all of the gathering of the harsh and the hard and the beautiful and the ecstasy and the orgasm and all the things. And then bringing something deep through you. And, a lot of us won't reach the point where we hit Dharma, where we get to like reach our Dharma, like, multiple lifetimes if you believe in reincarnation. But I feel like for me, it was so much bigger than just, having 10K months or, all the things that were, it was like, oh, okay. So, wow, like I need to help create communities all over the world to help people live like more sustainably and regeneratively. And like, okay, like I can't show up consistently to my job. Like, how am I going to be this person? It's like, we get to grow into this person. So everybody has a unique Dharma of like some message, some word, some thing that only they can speak.
So purpose is like the purpose that we think and feel, but Dharma is like the deeper purpose for our own soul's growth is what I take.
And humanities. I mean, it really sometimes we get to have the expansion in the process, but I really feel like the things that I'm putting out in the world right now, I mean, they serve me in ways, like they serve my life, and financially they help me in things, but like it's so much bigger than me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's so much more than just, so it's like, how can I make myself as comfortable? How can I make sure that I'm fed and watered and all the things that I need to have happen in my life so that I can serve on this scale? And
let's talk about plant medicine. So plant medicine, when I just kind of totally lost and went blank earlier, that's really what I wanted to talk about. And I love that you brought in ayahuasca. And I would love for you to just expand a little bit more on plant medicine. Because I think for some people, if they have and I have limited knowledge of plant medicine myself. So, but I think for some people, if they have ever heard of plant medicine at all, they might immediately jump to, oh, does that mean I have to do an ayahuasca ceremony?
No.
And will you just share like the range of what that means?
So there are many different types of plant medicines. We'll start with, the herbs and stuff we grow in our gardens are plant medicines. There are many medicinal herbs that are plant medicines. And then there are like Amazonian or, African medicines. There's medicines from all over the world. And in our brain, we create a chemical called dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT. And if we were just to take DMT, we wouldn't absorb it because we make it. So the spirit of tobacco came to a shaman and said, if you add this vine with this leaf and create like a brew and drink it, you'll be able to absorb it, which acts as like an MAOI inhibitor. So you can actually like absorb the medicine. We are the medicine. We create it in our brains. So, there are places like here in California where you can go do a 9-day retreat in the dark. Everything you eat in the dark, you go to the bathroom in the dark, everything's in the dark.
Oh,
on that 9th day, copious amounts of DMT is released from the brain. So all of these medicines are really designed to help us realize that we are the medicine. I work with Amazonian frog medicine called Combo, which is not a psychedelic, it's a purgative. And the design is for us to throw up.
Okay.
So I burn the skin, you go through the purge process, you feel like you have the flu, you purge, you have to go to the bathroom, and then it's over. And then you feel it helps the body to realign itself. It helps balance hormones. They're using it for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, depression, all of these different things. We work with a medicine called Bufo, which is the molecule of spirit. So it is such a big medicine, such an enormously huge medicine, that most people, like, it literally will blow the lid off of you. So I don't agree. I think that there's medicinal ways to work with these things, but it's really just the shamanic path is hollowing the bone. We're scooping out all of our inside stuff and becoming hollow to be a container to hold something for something much bigger.
I love that.
Yeah, there is not enough plant medicine on the world for everyone to do it by any means. And there's lots of people that are just recreationally curious. Like I run retreats, and I've had people say, it's on my bucket list. I'm like, this is not for you. This retreat is not for you, because I'm not here to serve in that way. I'm here to help people.
I want to touch on something you said. You were talking about purgative type experiences where people are purging, and then psychedelic experiences. And I had the perception, maybe, I don't know if others did too, but I had the perception that psychedelic was also purgative.
Yeah, absolutely. But some are just purgative based. There's no like psychoactive experience whatsoever. But yeah, so it's actually not even purging. We call it getting well. So like ayahuasca specifically is like a scrubby brush. So she's going to go into the body. She's going to have you deal with things that maybe you didn't want to deal with. And then you throw it up. And yeah, so what comes out in those buckets is enormously. And if you're in the medicine, or you're like a practitioner, I use the word shaman like loosely. The word shaman isn't even really a word. It's a Mongolian term for a Mongolian medicine person, but we abuse it here and call everyone shamans. So what the medicine person actually sees when you come out is an entity or a demon or something. We all have things attached to us, or things that have happened in our lives. You know, we can pick up schmutz, as I call it, any place. But yeah, so what we're actually seeing in those ceremonies can sometimes be a little bit crazy.
Okay, what type of person, I try not to say the word should, but I'm going to say it anyway. What type of person should do, one of these sound very intense. So I'm going to say one of these intense plant medicine experiences versus what type of person shouldn't?
Well, I don't want to put a stereotype. Like if someone is seriously called to the path of medicine, just like I was, like it was for 5 years, I was like, I have to do this medicine. Like I have to go in and understand this. But I have extreme levels of anxiety. So typically if a person wants to come to one of my retreats and they have extreme anxiety, I don't really recommend them continuing coming a bunch. And we're going to be super careful about how we serve them, because it can be very taxing to the nervous system. So that is not a no, but it's a caution. But if you're just curious, I'd say, like you're seeking something outside of yourself to find something inside of yourself. If you have some really deep trauma to work through, that's probably a person that should really show up. I had a lot of deep trauma to deal with, and there's no way my brain would have allowed me to process at that level. But I also, I again, in that like super addictive personality in me, I just kept going. Like I think I did like 12 ceremonies in a year, and my anxiety was so bad, and like the work was so deep, and I wasn't integrating properly. Like one person could do one ceremony and integrate it correctly, and that's all they need. And there are lots of lighter medicines that we can work with, the fungus and different things that are beautiful. We don't have to have a super extreme experience. So I don't want to say who should come and who should not come. If it's the call in your soul and you're like, this is a thing, listen to that. But if you're like, oh, everyone's talking about it, that's the next thing I'm going to try. It's on my bucket list. Like I wouldn't necessarily say it's for you.
Okay. Where can people go to learn more about those retreats if they want to check them out?
Yeah. I mean, my retreats are typically referral only. So like, we have to be super cautious about and careful about how like we share stuff. So please don't send me a message and asking me specifically about that, and just say I'm looking at like talking to you about some of the work that you do. You can go to my website, cosmicsmith.com, and a little bit understand, like I do a lot more private work with people. So that's a super beautiful experience. But yeah, if you just reach out and say, hey, I'd love a conversation with you, that's a great way to do it. And you can do that through Facebook or go to my website and just send me an email, which is fine too. And then if you want to join our Expanded Hueman community, we have so many crazy things going on over there, and it's on Facebook and it's super fun. We're gonna have like like a happy hour for singles coming up, and yeah,
Nice.
this week we're talking about relationships, of either being single and not having a relationship during the quarantine, or being in a partnership that may be challenging during this time.
Okay.
So just we try and ask what people need. So
One more question about the plant medicine. Would you say that once a person goes through that it's empowering?
oh, it can be extremely empowering. It changed my life. There's no way for me that I could have possibly stepped into my potential and faced my fears and faced those uncomfortable parts of myself without it. And I don't sit with it anymore because it's too extreme for my system. So there was a point when
Okay.
everyone's like, just keep coming back. And I'm like, I think I'm good. Like, I think I'm good.
Enough is enough.
Yeah. It is even hard for me to sit in the room at retreat with my people and not be on the medicine.
Wow.
Because I still journey. I'm still having visions without it. So I would like to share the story if I have a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
My last ceremony, I didn't want to go back up and get more medicine, and I was just like, ugh. And the grandmother ayahuasca is what we call her. She was like, I need you to go, and I was like, and I fought with her for 45 minutes, and she's like, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you to go. So I went up there, and I was like, oh, and all this fear, and I got back, and she's like, what the hell are you so afraid of? And I laid out all the things I was afraid of on this like table. It's like, in my mind. And she took them all and she turned them into a door. And she was like, walk through it. And I was like, no. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, but it's going to be so, like, I feel so horrible right now. And she's like, you spend your whole life right outside the door, waiting, wondering. And as soon as I walked through it, like, all the fear left my body. And that was like how I finally started doing things in business, and how I finally started like listening to the fact that like my procrastination, that need in me was preventing me from living my life. So that ceremony was so incredibly powerful for me.
So in other words, the walking through the door was the taking the action that you knew to take all along, but just hadn't been.
And I was afraid of what it was going to feel like, but she's like, how you feel now is way worse than how you're going to feel when you walk through the door.
Isn't that so interesting? How that happens.
It's like our untapped potential, right? Like it's like easier to stay sick than, some people like, oh, I don't want to throw up, and like, oh, and it's like two or so years. If you're really deep work to do, 2 or so years of doing work with plant medicine and proper integration, your whole life's different. Or you can spend your whole life feeding the sickness and dealing with all the stuff and like, working with it that way. So it's a choice.
Wow, Rhonda, I love everything you've shared today. Are there any final tips you want to leave our audience with before we wrap up?
I don't want you to be like everybody else. Like, I really want to see who you are. I want to hear the neat things that come through you. We all have unique information that comes through it. And if we're all trying to be the same person or follow the same path, like, so uninteresting. So uninteresting. And it's like, I would way rather sit down, and we may have really opposing views on something, but if we can just sit down and have a conversation about like, I don't need you to believe what I believe, and I don't need to believe what you believe, but there's a way to have a conversation, and maybe something will spark, maybe something won't, maybe there's just a way to sit and be in community. And right now everyone is so deep in their opinions and that dissonance, right? So it's like, I just be who you are. Let your freak flag fly and go finally just be who that person you wanted to be. Wear a tutu to the store, do whatever it is the hell that you need to do. But like,
yes,
wear your tutu to the store.
Someone do that and take a picture of it.
I would love that. Maybe I'll get a tutu and wear it to the store and take a picture of that. But it's like, I'm tired of us like worrying about what people are going to think when I'm way more interested in you not being the same and being interesting. So.
I love it. Absolutely. Well, Rhonda, thank you so much for being here today and being so open and sharing so many some thoughts and stories and all of it. I absolutely loved it myself. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. A great show.
Absolutely. Yes. And to everybody who's with us today, let us know what you're taking away from this conversation. I also want to leave you with, we are currently at the timing of this recording, which today is April 8th. If you are here on Facebook and you happen to watch the replay of this, we're in the middle of a 21-day rise and shine. Every day is a new day. 30-minute video series that I'm doing on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page. And it's an opportunity for you to really take advantage of tuning in and getting in alignment with who you are and what you're feeling, and allowing you to be in that flow state and really just taking time for you. And so if that resonates with you and you would like to take advantage of this opportunity, join me every morning on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm bringing a new guest on every day, and we are just having fun with it and aligning and coming as we are, makeup, no makeup, whatever. And we invite you to join us in that. So just wanted to remind you about that. But as we wrap up here, please remember every day is a new day. And that's a metaphor for every moment is a new moment. Every second is a new second. Every opportunity to engage with someone else in your life is another opportunity to create a different experience even. And I hope that you will find some sense of hope at this time in that message that every day is a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. And just know that you are loved and you're not alone on this journey. With that said, I will see you next week for another episode of the Every Day is a New Day show. Bye, everybody. And that's today's show. So, what are you taking away? Let me know down in the comments wherever you listened or watched today's episode, and connect with me on Facebook on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page, or visit KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. Remember, every day is always a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. There is always hope, and you will always be amazing. I'll see you next time.